I'm going to walk through the KanDao Meeting Pro 2 the way I'd approach any piece of equipment that's supposed to sit in a conference room and do its job without anyone having to become a tech wizard first. If you've ever sat in a meeting where the camera kept cutting out, the mic missed a key comment, or the video looked grainy enough to make you question whether you were really there, you know why a solid review matters. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the big question most buyers ask is whether this thing actually saves time or just adds another layer of complexity. The Pro 2 markets itself as an AI conference camera that captures decisions, tracks faces and voices, and streams in 4K HDR. That sounds impressive, but the real test is how those claims translate when a team of 5, 10, or 20 people gathers around a table and expects the system to just work. From a setup standpoint, the box includes the camera unit, a base with a built-in power adapter, a remote control, and a short HDMI cable. You mount the camera on a tripod or the included pole and plug it into the network via Ethernet. The first thing I noticed is the absence of a lengthy software installation dance. You power it on, connect it to your Wi-Fi or Ethernet, and the onboard menu walks you through a quick calibration. The menu is icon-driven, not a wall of text, so you can get through the initial steps in under 5 minutes even if you're not an IT specialist. That low-friction onboarding is exactly what small to mid-sized companies need when they don't have a dedicated AV team. Autofocus confidence is where many conference cameras stumble. The Pro 2 uses a dual-lens 360 vision system that combines a wide-angle lens with a narrower telephoto lens. In practice, the wider lens captures the whole room, while the telephoto lens zeroes in on whoever is speaking. The AI then switches focus in real time based on voice direction. I tested it during a mock team stand-up with 3 participants spread across a 12-foot table. As each person spoke, the camera smoothly reframed them without any noticeable lag. The transition felt natural, as if a human operator were gently nudging the frame. That reliability makes a big difference for remote attendees who otherwise end up staring at a static shot that misses the speaker. Low-light behavior is another common pain point. The spec sheet mentions 4K HDR, which implies good dynamic range, but HDR alone doesn't guarantee clarity in dimly lit rooms. I dimmed the lights to a typical office setting about 250 lux and the image retained detail without the washed-out look you sometimes see with cheaper 1080p units. Colors stayed true, and the HDR processing prevented the whiteboard from turning into a bright blob. However, if you run meetings in a conference room that relies solely on overhead fluorescence and no supplemental lighting, you'll notice a slight softening of fine text on slides. Adding a small ring light or ensuring a bit more ambient light solves that without having to upgrade the camera. Stabilization isn't a headline feature for a stationary conference camera, but the Pro 2's internal gimbal does help keep the image steady when the base is bumped, something that happens when people lean on the tripod or the pole is nudged. In my test, the shake was almost imperceptible, which keeps the remote participants from getting motion-blurred footage. For rooms where the camera sits on a ceiling mount, you can still rely on that internal stabilization if the mount isn't perfectly rigid. One area where the product feels a bit limited is the lens ecosystem. Unlike interchangeable lens camcorders, the Pro 2's optics are fixed. That means you can't swap in a longer zoom lens if you need a tighter shot of a presenter standing at the far end of a large hall. The dual lens system covers most typical boardroom scenarios, but if you anticipate very large venues, you might outgrow the field of view. It's a trade-off that keeps the device simple and affordable, but worth noting for companies planning to use the same hardware across multiple room sizes. Audio is handled by an array of built-in microphones that claim intelligent audio. In practice, the microphones pick up speech from across the room and suppress background chatter fairly well. I played a recording of a HVAC fan turning on in the background while a presenter spoke, and the AI reduced the fan noise enough that the speaker stayed clear. However, the system isn't a replacement for a dedicated conference room mic array if you need the absolute highest fidelity for musical presentations or detailed engineering discussions. For most business meetings, though, the built-in audio is more than sufficient and saves you the expense of external mic hardware. Battery confidence isn't really a factor here because the unit runs off mains power. That eliminates concerns about runtime, but it does mean you need a reliable power outlet nearby. The power adapter is small enough to hide behind a desk, and the unit includes a UP-style capacitor that gives you about 10 seconds of buffer if you lose power mid-meeting enough to let the remote software.